All right. Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And thank you very much to our guests today, Ian Golding and Matthieu Bonelli. As a brief introduction, I'm the Event and Communication Manager, and I will be chairing this very interesting afternoon discussion. This webinar will see a 60-minute presentation followed by 20 minutes Q&A. It will also be recorded. So if you need to leave the webinar earlier, that's fine. You will be able to watch it again later. In terms of our speakers, Ian Golding is the founder of Customer Experience Consultancy, as well as being a certified customer experience professional and specialist. He spent 20 years in basically business improvements, working hard to ensure that the business he was working for were as customer focused as possible. And then in 2021, he was recognized as the Customer Experience Magazine's top CX influencer. On the other side, we got Matthieu Bonelli. He's the founder of CXMania, a consultancy which helps organizations make better decisions for their customer experience, and at the same time help them create successful CX programs. Matthieu's dedicated his whole career to the field of customer experience. And he also worked for some of the most customer-centric e-commerce organizations such as Zalando, Casper, where he gained extensive experience, and he implemented projects which delivered great value to his clients. Now, today, Ian and Matthieu will talk about the voice of process and how to operationalize it to drive continuous improvement to client CX. In particular, they will share the need of creating a measurable understanding between customer-facing processes and customer journey. And on top of explaining their methodology, they will also show you a demonstration of how their clients have connected customer insights to business performance and how their work have actually correlated to measurable return on investment. Now, after the conversation, we will have the Q&A section. So you will be able to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen to submit any questions online. And because we were very pleased to have such a good turnout, to be honest. So as a result, we won't be able to answer all the questions. So we encourage you to use the Q&A feature by upvoting questions. That is, liking the questions you want to be asked, and then those that will have the most like will appear on top of the Q&A window, which means you won't be able to see questions in chronological order. So make sure to scroll up to see the ones that are more popular. And then we will ask those questions to the panelists. Now, please join me at giving a warm welcome to Ian Golding and Matthieu Bonelli for this very exciting discussion. Ian, I will hand over it to you first.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Louisa, for that lovely introduction and contextualizing everything that we're going to talk about today. It is a real pleasure for me to be speaking today. But just so everyone knows, I'm sitting in a hotel room in Serbia. Finally, I've started to travel again. So if anything happens and I disappear, it is hotel Wi-Fi that is scuppering us. So I always like to set expectation just in case. You never quite know what's going to happen. But fingers crossed, we should be okay. And it is a real joy for me to be running this webinar alongside Matthieu, someone who I've known for many years now, actually, and someone who I very much admired for the work that he has been doing and the work that he continues to do across the whole sphere of customer experience, but specifically with measurement. And the concept of voice of the process is one that him and I spoke about the very first time that we met. And as soon as I mentioned the term voice of the process, his eyes lit up. And I could see that it got to him immediately. I can never even remember if it was me that was the first person to even talk about voice of the process in this way, but it certainly struck a chord with Matthieu. And I remember him saying to me, I know how to do this. I know how to actually take the theory and make it happen. And it's now that we're in a brilliant position to be able to show you exactly how to do it. Some of you will have heard me speak before. There are people in this webinar who have heard me speaking many times before, actually. But today is special because whilst I am going to provide a little bit more background to what we mean by voice of the process and why it is such a vitally important part of a robust customer experience measurement system. The more important part of this webinar is what Matthieu is going to show you, because he's going to show you exactly how to do it. And again, it's really exciting for me to be working in partnership with someone that has designed an approach to actually putting it in place. Because what I'm about to share with you is not easy to do. Those people that have attended my CX masterclasses over the years know that I will always start talking about voice of the process by saying that this is the most difficult concept of all when it comes to the subject of customer experience. But whilst it is very difficult to do, that does not mean you should not do it. And that's why it is brilliant for you to see a methodology that can be put into place by your organization now, if you wanted to. So let me get on with it and explain to you just the theory behind it before I pass over to Matthieu. Now, it is really important whenever I talk about customer experience that I do put together the jigsaw puzzle that customer experience is. Because when it comes to the subject of customer experience and the profession that customer experience now is, we need to recognize that it is a combination of a number of competencies, interconnected competencies that an organization needs to understand, adopt, and continue to mature in. In my opinion, and the opinion of many customer experience specialists around the world, those competencies should be adopted in the form of a framework. Now, whilst there is no one standard framework that an organization can adopt, this is the educational framework that I use when I'm explaining the principle of the rigor of customer experience to professionals all around the world. And the important part of the framework that I want to focus on for the purposes of this webinar and our discussion around voice of the process is the middle part of the framework, the part that we call measurement or the facts. Now, I have to always stress that I call this part of the framework measurement or the facts because customer experience should be a fact-based methodology. And the facts that we need are the facts that help us to understand how capable the customer journey is at bringing the desired experience for our customers to life. Now, to determine how capable that customer journey is, you need to have a number of pieces of that jigsaw puzzle that I referred to. And what I describe this measurement part of the puzzle as is the concept of customer journey management. Customer journey management is, in my opinion, the most important principle of customer experience, because it is customer journey management that will enable your organization to deliver measurable change, to deliver that return on investment that organizations are desperately seeking. The customer journey management cycle is a cycle of continuous, never-ending, interconnected activities, the activities you see on the screen. We need to know who our customers are. Reason being that the journey that we are delivering is a customer journey. So we need to be clear as to who that journey is being delivered to. This is not a channel journey or a product journey. When we have visualized the journey, then we need to measure it. And the reason that we measure the journey is not to create a pretty picture, but it's because we need to use that measurement to help us to determine what our priorities for improvement are. The small number of priorities that, if we address them, will have the greatest impact on improving customer perception and, as a result, financial performance. And when we know what those priorities are, we fix them. And we go back around that cycle all over again and all over again forever. Today, we want to narrow down to that measurement step. What does that measurement step look like? Because I've said we need to know what the journey looks like, but we need to be able to measure that journey to determine what the priorities for improvement are. And fundamentally, when it comes to measuring the customer journey, what we really need organizations to understand is the importance of the relationship between cause and effect. Now, those of you with a background in process improvement will not be surprised to see these two words on the screen, because process improvement has always been about understanding the relationship between cause and effect. But actually, that is exactly what customer experience should be about. What an organization does every day in delivering what it does to the customer by performing day-to-day operational processes will cause our customers to feel the way they feel when they interact with touch points in the journey. Understanding the measurable relationship between those two things is what will give us the greatest opportunity to deliver measurable change. And the only way you can measure the relationship between cause and effect is if you are able to measure more than just VOC. Most organizations around the world, when they think about customer experience measurement, are only measuring voice of the customer. Most organizations on earth, not all, but most, have some form of VOC metric in place. The predominant metric in the world today, as most of you will be aware, is Net Promoter Score. But there are other metrics that are being used. Now, obviously, measuring VOC is vitally important. But what VOC is going to tell you is the effect of everything you do. It is going to tell you how your customers feel about the things that you're doing. What VOC will not do is tell you what is causing that effect. For context, voice of the employee is all about understanding employee perception of your ability to deliver the customer journey. I'm not going to go into any more detail about voice of the employee today, other than saying to you that voice of the employee is a check and balance for VOC. It is the third voice that, as you know, that is our focus for today, because the third voice is the least captured voice of the three, and that is voice of the process. Voice of the process is the least captured voice of the three, but as I will always say, and I think Matthieu heard me say this many years ago, voice of the process is where the magic happens, because voice of the process is where we are able to measure the things that we're doing, how our processes are performing, that is causing our customer to feel the way they feel. And I'm going to expand on what I mean by that in a moment. Before I do, it's vitally important for me to stress that there is a fourth voice that far too often is not necessarily intentionally ignored, but a fourth voice that we're not able to consider strongly enough as customer experience professionals. That fourth voice being voice of the business. Voice of the business represents strategic business metrics, things that the business cares about: profit, revenue, growth, customer retention, employee retention, cost control, cost reduction. It is all of the strategic metrics that your business leaders will want to understand how customer experience is impacting them. And this is the key, because the only way you're going to really be able to demonstrate the relationship between the way we measure the customer experience and voice of the business is by understanding that measurable relationship between cause and effect. Because that will enable you to determine not just the impact that you are having on revenue generation, but as importantly, the impact that you are able to have on cost reduction and cost avoidance. So with that in mind, let me just narrow down a little bit more as to what I mean by voice of the process before I pass over to Matthieu to show you just exactly how you can do it. And I'm very intentionally just sharing the concept with you at a high level, so Matthieu can translate it into the practicality. I must always stress when we talk about voice of the process that essentially we're talking about process capability. How capable are your operational, organizational processes at delivering touch points in your customer journey? Processes represent the things that you and your colleagues do every day. The customer journey represents everything that your customer interacts with as a result. VOC is measuring customer perception of those interactions. Voice of the process is measuring how capable those processes are at delivering the touch points that result in those interactions. That is what it is all about. When you think about operational processes, they are things like accuracy of the delivery promise, first time call resolution, the number of complaints that you receive, customer facing operational processes. That really important two words being customer facing. What essentially we're trying to visualize here is the relationship between two of these three organizational layers. All experiences are delivered through the three layers in totality: the customer journey, your business processes, and then technology. But what we're trying to determine from a measurement perspective is the alignment between the customer journey and your customer-facing business processes. If your processes, the things that you and your colleagues do every day, are aligned to the customer journey, if you improve the things that you do, your customers will get happier. That is the very basic principle of the relationship between process and journey. The problem here is that far too many organizations are not measuring what they're doing in alignment with the customer journey. If you think about the traditional KPIs that your organization has in place, how many of those KPIs impact the customer? How many of those KPIs measure processes that deliver touch points in the journey? The likelihood is the majority of the KPIs being measured by the business are metrics that the business cares about, not necessarily metrics that determine how capable processes are at delivering touch points in the journey. The reason why what I'm conceptualizing for you is so important is that if you are able to measure the relationship between cause and effect, you will be able to predict how your customers are going to feel. And the crude analogy that I always use to do this, if you can see me in your picture, I'll use two props if you can see them. So my first prop is a water bottle on its side. My second prop is a very large bar of chocolate that I was given as a gift. which I haven't opened yet because my intention is to give it to my children when I get home. Okay, we shall see if I can succeed in doing that. If my processes, the things that I'm doing every day, are aligned to the customer journey, okay? And so if we assume that my bottle represents my processes and my chocolate bar represents the customer journey, if they are aligned, okay, if my processes get better at doing what they do, my customers are going to get happier, okay, because they're aligned. Likewise, if something with my process goes wrong, because they're aligned, I can know that my customers are going to get less happy. The reality is, for most organizations, is that that's not happening, because most processes are not aligned. Many processes are not aligned to the journey. And if processes are not aligned to the journey, it doesn't matter if they get better or worse, my customer is not even going to notice. So essentially, I need to know, how good are my processes at delivering touch points in the journey? And to do it, these are the steps that are required to bring the concept to life. Firstly, you have to know what the customer journey looks like. Everything starts with the customer journey, okay? It's critical. Too many organizations still are not linking business decisions to the customer journey, or they still are not measuring the end-to-end customer journey. The next step is where we start to see the challenge, because the next step is that we need to know who is accountable for the processes that deliver the touch points in the customer journey. One of the reasons why voice of the process is very difficult to do is because of the lack of accountability for process in organizations. It's very likely many of you listening to this may not even know who is accountable for the process that delivers touch points in your journey. And if we do not know who is accountable, it's extremely possible that those processes are not even being measured. This is a huge challenge, because if processes are not even being measured, you may have to create metrics from scratch. It's not easy, but as I keep saying, just because it's not easy does not mean we shouldn't do it. Because if you are able to do what I'm describing in simplistic form, not only will the alignment of VOC and VOP enable you to identify the small number of priorities that, if we address them, will make the greatest difference, it will also instill the discipline of measurement and accountability across the end-to-end journey. Because even if something isn't a priority, there is still an accountable process owner measuring, monitoring, driving incremental improvement over time. I've done this many, many times with different organizations around the world. It is absolutely possible to do, but having a mechanism to enable you to do it makes it significantly more feasible. And that is the point of today, because the big question is how. So without further ado, having provided the context, I'm going to pass over to Matthieu, who for the very first time is going to share with a public audience a very effective methodology that you could put in place to bring that concept to life. Matthieu, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you. I have to say, this is not the first time I hear your presentation. And as always learning new things, even the way you use some of the words. I love how you explain so simply cause and effects and how it makes everything have, just a bigger sense on what we do things. So thank you so much for that, Ian. Let's go. Let me show you my screen. Let me show you, first of all, a PowerPoint. But I promise to you that I'm going to show you a demo. This is not just a demo on a PowerPoint. I promise you that. Why are we doing a PowerPoint? Because I want to set the backgrounds and share with you a bit of the context for what I'm going to show you, so you can all follow that. And then before I do so, let's talk about some limitations, because Jan, you just said it well. This is a first public demo, but this is a demo of something, of a product that is still in very early development phase. This is a tool that we're building as we go with some e-commerce brands at the moment. And, you know, I love minimal viable products. So this is the way to go. We'll make it look pretty later. We'll make it fully accessible to everyone later. But so far, we just wanted to validate the value of the data. So that's why you're going to see an unfinished product, but you're going to see something that looks, I hope, promising as we have discussed. For the sake of confidentiality, but also because, again, it's a demo and I don't expect any of you to become an expert in the tool in the next 30 minutes, we have simplified a lot of the data. Everything has been rounded, everything has been put to place so it's easier to follow. But bear in mind, this is based on reality cases. This is something where the data really shows you what is going on. And Jan, you mentioned a lot about the cause and effect and the relationship between the voices. We're going to see exactly that. But for the sake of that demo, we've created a model for a fake company called the Biscuits Company. They're an e-commerce. They sell about 100,000 euros a month in 4 different countries. And we will see how they make more and less money following the months, how CSAT, customer satisfaction, is evolving, how their performance is evolving month over month. And I'm going to show you how we set it up, how we use it monthly, how the measurements, the KPIs evolve, the indexes evolve, so you can really understand how everything works. Don't get tangled into the details of which KPI, what is written, what is the number, how it evolves, and etc. Just let yourself, get carried on that journey. I will show you everything. Feel free to ask questions again on the Q&A, even from what Jan was sharing, if you want him to go further into some details or specifics to the presentation, to my part. So here we're setting up the CX cockpit. The CX cockpit shows the 3 voices. So here the last voice that is displayed is the voice of the business, because as Jan shared, we want to see that relationship between customer insights, business performance, and profits. So far, what you need to see is that all of those voices have been set with an index of 0%. What does that mean? That means we're not trying to compare ourselves with the best leading e-commerce companies as a small biscuits company we are today. We're just trying to be better day after day and to see how everything improves, and especially how they are correlated, right? The cause and the effects and the relationship one is having on the other. So the first voice is the voice of customer map. And here you see a unique representation, a one visual that gathers every customer insights you can have for your organization. So surveys, public reviews, you can even go, if you want, into emails from your customers when they're contacting you. Everything, every feedback from the entire sources that you have. And what can we see? So we have left to right, browsing, buying, receiving, using, and getting help, all the 5 main steps that you would have on an e-commerce business. Of course, it's a representation, right? You could always ask for help at the buying step, but just to have an easy visual here, right? And what we can see is what is important for the consumer with the size of each bubble, and also how satisfied they are with everything. For you to understand the philosophy of this, we are not asking a customer, what do you think about the taste of our biscuits? Or how satisfied are you with the speed of delivery? This is insight that are generated through AI. We use a tool called Lumoa that really understands the text, the verbatim, and can categorize all of this. So this is what the customers want to tell us. This is not necessarily what we want to hear. I would definitely not want to hear about all of these issues with website speed, payment process, personal information, like all of the issues with the support team that you can see. And that, as Jan said, is the basis for what we're doing. Without that view or a similar view like this, we don't understand what customers need, want, don't have today. So here, first step of the business, we are July 1st. The business is deciding, thanks to that voice of customer, to work on 3 projects: website speed, payment process, and they're also going to train the support team because, I mean, that big bubble, they are very negative about personal, cannot be there, right? So that's our setup for the voice of the customer. Now, and I'm again in the presentation because I want to show to you different parts of the tools so you're not confused when we're going to go there. The voice of the process is pretty simple to follow through. You have the first big chart where you can see the different countries and their evolution with that indexed month over month. So you can already see, we get into the demo part later, some drops, some improvements as the business evolves. On that part here, you can see the overall index and then an index that represents every smaller index for each customer journey step. The goal here is to be able to monitor, to see the differences month over month of my business, but also within the same months. As you can see, the lines are not together, right? I want to see the differences between countries. So you'll see how we can play with that to see the more, like the real pain points and what the customers has experienced. That's one level. If we go to one level lower, we get the KPIs. Jan, you were saying that, right? Customer-facing KPIs is what makes the difference between this tool and the other tools you would have available. Here, I'm not going to go through every KPI, but we said website speed was an issue. Well, there is one KPI which is called page loading speed, which is going to be linked right to that bubble you saw before. And obviously, when the loading speed goes lower, when we improve the website speed, then we expect, as a result, the satisfaction through that to either go higher or the pain points, the bubble to disappear, right? And that's the same with other projects. So we said we wanted to work on payment process. So here, payment complaints is going to be a big part. Probably it's going to also impact buy-in step conversion. And we also said we wanted to work on the support. So when I go through the presentation, check those parts because this is where we want to see some improvements. Now, those KPIs, they are set at 0, as I said, as a basis. But also it's important to say that the company is decided of the goals and the direction they want to go to. So if you would see 100% for the KPI, that means the company is reaching that goal they have set for themselves. And that's a really good way of course, monitoring progress month over month and to see how well we're doing. If that's a 12-month goal, well, after 6 months, we should be around 50%, right? But there's also another part, which is to set up critical targets as the level, the KPI we do not want to reach. So just to take an example, right, make it clear. Page loading speed, they just said that our data today on the 1st of July shows this is 0% because it's 4 seconds in average. Our goal is going to be to reach 2 seconds. So when we reach 2 seconds, it's going to be plus 100. And we're going to set a critical target at 5 seconds, for example. So that's the KPI, the data we do not want to reach. So that's for the voice of the process. Now for the voice of the business, you're going to see when I will show the demo, when I show the tool, a lot of data. So here, this is why I've cleaned it up as much as I could. Again, you have the charts on the top parts that has the index linked to voice of business. So you can see the evolution. And for those who have really looked into the other chart, you can see the correlation between the two charts. On the left-hand side, you will see more things related to customer behavior and things linked to support and operations cost. This is what you called, Jan, well, I don't remember the name exactly, but those are all of the behaviors that are going to be linked in order to justify and to understand more the return on investment that you get after. when customers perceive a better experience, they're going to buy more. So retention, loyalty, all of those order metrics, all of those financial metrics that you were mentioning, Jan, are going to be visible here. They're going to be calculated. So again, when I show, don't worry, we're going to show you a simple way of tracking progress. And then on the right-hand side, this is a one-to-one correlation between that behavior and the profit and loss statement. Because an increase in orders for my active customers is going to translate directly into more profit from this customer pool. So this is going to be something very important in the future, especially if you have the CFO into that loop to really see that's the end goal of what we are doing. You will see improvements on the VOC being seen on the voice of the process. From there, new behaviors, and from that part, profit. Let's go to the demo. I'm really proud to show you that because the team has been working for very hard for the entire year to have this here. So this is the first, and thank you, Luisa and Jan, for making it happen. So this is now the voice of the process. Again, I was showing you this, except I only showed one comparison. You have both of them, right? Let's go right away and see what has happened in the month of August, because the month of August, you can see a big drop at all of the countries. So I'm going to simply, let's just check, just keep July on the top part and see the evolution between July and August.
We can still see your PowerPoint, Matthieu.
You can only see the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and start sharing again. Yeah, because I did not share my screen. So there you are. Thank you, Jan, for that. So as you can see, right, we said there was a drop in August, and now I'm comparing July and August. This is my high-level view. We're not going to spend too much time today, but this is a view where business leaders will go because they just want to have a quick look. They don't want to go into the details, and this is what we will do. Now we are the CX insights managers. We are the marketing manager, we are the logistics people, we are the support people, and I'm going to show you how everything changes and how you can see that evolution. So here, between July and August, well, my overall index has dropped by 31%. And you can see where it happened. It happened in the buying step, and it happens in the support step. And I can clearly see, well, we said payment process was already a pain point. This is getting worse because we're now even getting worse from the month of July. We are just in August, a month later. And you can see we've been way further our critical points. We've almost reached our critical point for the buying step conversion. And you can see also that the support team really struggled with the income of contacts. I would say from that case that a lot of our new customers would just go away. They're not loyal. This is the first time they buy the biscuits. They want to buy, well, I cannot pay. You guys don't want my money. I'm going to buy biscuits somewhere else. It's not like it's the hardest thing to do. So they're going to just go away, which you will see with this buying step conversion dropping. And we actually are going to see that in the VOB, the voice of business, right after. And our most loyal customers would have contacted us, and hence what you see here. So now let's see what happens on the voice of the business. I'm going to go to the month of August, and we're going to be able to see that. We're going to be able to see from our new customers, the first order they place, we're going to see a checkout conversion that has gone minus 30% here, which is a huge drop. But when you have such significant payment issues with the payment provider, the third party that you would use, this is something to be expected. You can see also a slight increase here in orders for my active customers, and obviously less orders, more contacts. You can see how my support costs are going up. Now, as I was saying, you have a translation 1-for-1 in terms of how much money you have lost that month. And remember, that company makes 100,000 euros per month. So in July, there was 100,000 euros. So now we already have a drop of about 15% in the voice of the business. Huge drop. We worked on that. And what happens at the end? Well, what happens at the end when we reach the month of October, which is here? We can see, oh, I got both months in there. We can see finally some improvements. We can see things getting better. Remember, I was telling you these 3 projects. Well, the page loading speed is getting better. You can see payment complaints. We're getting halfway through our objective. We're having a conversion with buying that also is improving as a consequence, right? They can pay, so of course they are doing it, and of course we're getting better, right? And finally, you can see training, how it has positively impacted the service levels for the entire support team, with the FAQ self-service like going really good and bringing a lot of help for the team. Now, quickly, let's see how each country is different. Because as you can see, the UK seems to be going much, much better than Germany. So now, if I would take the UK here and Germany there, well, I can see a big difference. I'm not on the month of October. So for the month of October, the UK, and October for Germany, what I can see, everything seems to be similar for browsing, buying, receiving, and using, because our big projects affected every country. However, now I can see in Germany, we have some issues. So it could be that either the training was not as successful, maybe the German team, because, you know, it's a different language, so different teams with different capabilities. Maybe some people left the company. A lot of things could happen, right? And that's really the role of the owner to share about all what you can see here. So now we are in October. I'm going to go back to my presentation. Tell me, Jan, there, that you can see back the presentation. Super. And now we ask, you remember the cause and effect that Jan was talking about. And now that I can also use those words to explain that, it's such an easy way. The cause is that we have improved our performance, and the effect can be visible right away on the voice of the customer, right away, a few months later, right? It still takes a bit of time. But you can see, comparing July and October, my July perception being in gray here, we were at 53%, we're now at 63%. And you can see improvements with the website speed, payment process, and also the effect of the training here. Right? So they are all connected. Remember, Jan's methodology here, we start by looking with the customer journeys at the full view, the full picture, the pain points of the customers. We start here. But then we work on our process, we work on our performance in order to improve this. Following our improvements over the following months, the customers start to see this part. So you would have that increase that is now reflected into my voice of customer, which is then reflected by a change in the behavior and the purchasing behavior, right? And then a change in my financial metrics. So we have now shown this correlation, which here works almost perfectly. It doesn't need to be that way, right? You will always have voice of process acting before the others, because that's where you start working on. And that's really important. So to show you how it actually works on a monthly basis, every month, KPI owners, because remember the accountability part was very important. KPI owners will tell for each KPI what has happened. Well, what has happened to my payment process, it has gone down for reasons that our third-party provider was saturated. We had a campaign, whatever happens, they could not deliver on the traffic. They had this issue. This is what happened. You show some supportive analysis always, right? Remember, this is not showing the full picture, and it doesn't mean you have to stop monitoring any KPI, right? You still have the rest to support your point of view. And then you share what you're currently working on. Well, we have solved that thing. And for the next months, we expect to have similar numbers, actually, because it could be, for example, Black Friday is coming and Christmas is coming. And well, with the volumes and the campaigns, maybe the payment provider won't be able to do that. So here's my message to the board now. Please allow us to get a more premium service from that payment provider to make sure we don't have any shortages, any issues, because you saw already on the month of August the impact this had on our business. Let's not do it again. Let's invest. So you see how now you've created a communication, a collaboration with the board. All of these those stories about this KPI, they come back to us. The owners tell us their story. We bring that story to the board. The board, thanks to those stories, which is not just numbers, it's the entire view of the customer, the sentiment and everything. It's much more thorough than just watching a simple dashboard, right? Then you can make decisions, then you can share that back down to the entire team. Everyone can see, then you can also start acting and have every KPI owners to start working on the KPIs. So just to summarize what you have seen, there's a lot of value here. We wanted to just show you 3 parts. The first value is the value of knowledge. When you don't know what you're doing and you don't know the decisions you make and you don't measure, right? Yeah, this keyword of measuring your customer experience is critical. Otherwise, you will do the same mistakes over and over, and you will not be able to improve sustainably your business, right? So here you can see how the business is evolving. You can see the KPIs and the journey step, how they can impact profit the most, right? And then you can definitely see what you should focus on next, because we have seen, right, that payment process cost us a lot of our business. Well, let's really try to improve that part to get that back. Today, the tool, at its stage, at its early development stage, is reactive only. But as we start to gather data for 6 months, for a year, then we're going to be able to be fully proactive and be able to say, well, in 2023, strong of our experience in 2022, we can say that the top 3 buckets where we should focus are 1, 2, 3, because we have seen, we have learned, and now we can actually be more proactive and say, those projects could bring us that much profit, and they're the most impactful in terms of customer satisfaction. In terms of value, it also brings clarity and transparency. I think this is easy to see how you have clarity and transparency, because everyone has this entire view from the customer's perspective. You have now accountability, ownership, which Ian was saying also is very important. You have improved communication between managers and leaders, but also across the managers and across each teams, because now you can see how everything is going and it's evolving for every other team. And I believe, we haven't seen that yet, but I believe in the future we're going to see, thanks to that clarity, higher productivity, happiness, and retention, which is going to have a very beneficial impact on your employees and on your customers in return afterwards. Finally, and this is, Ian, to me, this is one of the biggest things you mentioned, it's a business transformation. It's necessary, it's painful, but everyone knows we have to go through this if we want to be sustainable. And the faster we go towards this, the better, to be finally customer-centric in terms of our methodology, which you explained really well, and then to base all of our decision-making on data. That's going to bring clearer profitability, impact, and correlation. And then what I like to see is that now CX is not just a side project. Well, our objective is to grow by 20% year over year. And if you guys have time, you can also work on that customer experience project that Matthieu keeps on telling us about. No, now this becomes fully complementary. This becomes one where my financial strategy, my product strategy, my marketing strategy, my CX strategy, and they are all into this jigsaw puzzle you mentioned, right? And I really see how we can then not work as teams with different objectives, but really working together for the same goal. For the sake of time, and because I think it was super clear, and I just wanted to put that slide on the presentation, so you have it when we share it tomorrow to you. Huge impact on business leaders thanks to this clarity, this overview, removing data biases, having that full picture, that true picture, that is not just an Excel document or a dashboard, but comes from the customer's perspective, is really brought to you by the managers. I think that's where the value is for the business leaders. The managers are now more accountable, own really what they're doing and know where they need to go, know the direction, right? They can really become more visible. And a manager who cares about their job wants to make sure when he does a good job, he's also seen, well, that was my KPI to improve payment process. This is what's happening. This is how well we are doing things. And this is, you know, the impact my work is having on customer satisfaction and on the business. It's fantastic, right? And the last one is one we think a bit less, but I think shareholders also deserve to have that bigger picture. And I'm going to give you an example, something I will cherish probably for my entire career. When I was working at Zalando, so very big e-commerce fashion company for those who don't know Zalando, when the CEO of Zalando will share about, publicly about earnings and etc., he would always start talking about customer experience. He would always start saying, dear shareholders, we have increased customer satisfaction by X points over the last quarter. This is due to all of the improvements in lead time that has happened in Italy. This is the new payments options that we now have in France. Those are all of the incredible things we do for our customers. And now this is how they perceive it better. And thanks to that, they're giving us all of that money. So he really talks about CX, and only after that says, as a consequence, we have grown by 10%, 15% year over year, as per the predictions, and then it becomes only a financial statement. I want to also be very clear, Louisa, are we good on time? And I can take my time, yeah? Cool. I want to also be very clear on the challenges and the limitations. This is a tool that I believe, that Ian believes, will be useful for every company, to the condition that companies are ready and capable of doing this. You need to still be measuring NPS and have all of those metrics. We use customer sentiment, for example, for some reason. We have that philosophy behind customer insights. We have all of those ways of gathering customer insights, right? It's not just a number. You need to be, as an organization, data ready. I cannot believe that today, for example, some companies would not know about their returns rates, or they would not know about the correlation between my campaign and the return on advertising spends. All of those numbers are just critical, and this is only how you can become capable of making those decisions. But capabilities is one thing. The second part is willingness. If the business leaders are not willing to make change, if this is just a group of managers that say, well, that's a really cool tool, but I don't have the CEO's approval, or I do, they said, yes, just work on this project, but they're not fully committed into driving the business forward and into going for a structural change, which, as we said, is painful, but necessary, then nothing will happen. You need to be willing as an organization to try it, to work on it, and to start really today, because your competitor is going for it. And we are in 2022. How long, Jan, have you been talking about CX? It's been, as you said, 20 years. So people are doing and are going for that change. So you need to be capable and willing, and then you need to put in the effort, because a tool like this one is not an out-of-the-box tool. It's not a one-size-fits-all tool where the company is trying to fit the tool. No, this is the tool that will fit the company. Every business is so unique. How can I say my data is reliable if I have just plugged in something like this? I get really, really triggered when I hear those research that say NPS goes 1 point up, that means 1 million euros for your business. Well, I'm sorry, this is not reliable. This is not how it works. Maybe it worked for that one company that the research is linked to, but you need to really link everything together. You need to audit your company. You need to go deep into understanding your business in order to plug in a tool like this. And this is only then that you can believe in the data and then believe in the return on investment and not just say, yes, NPS plus 1 equals 1 million. No, I want to see that on my P&L. I want to see that on my surveys. I want to see that on my business performance. And only when I see everything and I believe in every data and every KPI that I can say, yes, this is working and this is bringing the return on investment. Final slide. And then I give it back to you, Jan, for some comments, which I'm sure you will have. We want to continue in that phase today that we are in of early development of minimal viable product. We want to make sure the tool can work and deliver the best value for more organizations, more business models. We said it's unique to an organization. Well, we don't want to commercialize a tool that is only working for one business. We want to fully understand how we can help multiple businesses. So we are really now throwing you, the bone and saying, do you want to be part of our next MVP? Do you want to try the tool and see in 2023 how this can help you? Because we can really help you achieve your goals for 2023. Put that all together and for you to have that dashboard fully operational within the next months. Obviously, doing that in an MVP phase, for some of you that are familiar with MVPs and how they work, that brings tremendous advantages for the organization. There's obviously the very high personalization. You can be co-creating the tool with us, right? Thanks to your feedback, thanks to the time we spend together. So that's really a tool you're gonna use 100% for the rest of your business. So the rest of your life, so forever, hopefully. And then of course there are financial incentive, right? This is not full price. This will be highly discounted offer, right? Because just for you, because we want to try and we really believe of the impact this can create. So if you want to throw yourselves at it for 2023, I think this is the right time and I think we can help you. And the way to do would be to simply contact me by email. Tomorrow we're going to send you an email with the 2 presentations you're seeing here, and we're going to be opening for a conversation. So just click on the link, just contact me on LinkedIn, on my emails, and start a conversation and let's see where that brings us. That's it for me. Thank you for listening to me. I'm going to stop sharing. Jan, any comments?
Just to, I suppose, conclude everything that you've shared and discussed, Matthieu. None of us goes into the customer experience discipline or profession because it's easy. All right, we know it's not easy, and all aspects of customer experience are incredibly challenging. What we do know for certain is that if we're able to demonstrate to an organization that an increased focus on the customer or the change of mindset from being product-led, sales-led to customer-led can deliver genuine, tangible benefit, that is how we can influence organizations to not just play lip service to customer experience, but embed it into the way that they work. And unfortunately, far too few legacy organizations have managed to do that. And I strongly, strongly believe that whilst there are many reasons, one of those reasons is because of the very ineffective way we're measuring the experience today. Because leaders are saying, what does that change in Net Promoter Score mean to the top and bottom line? Well, I don't know. Oh, well, then customer experience doesn't work. We're not measuring effectively enough. And what Matthieu is suggesting to all of you is a bit of a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Give this a go. You've got nothing to lose from giving this a go. Many of you who've heard me speak again know you do not need to suddenly adopt a VOP measurement system across the whole organization by next week. You know, you can start small and start to build the concept. So I think it's brilliant that Matthieu and his team have been able to build this. And I think if it's something that is whetting your appetite, do get in touch with Matthieu and try it. Try it, see how it works, and then take it from there.
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Yeah, this is a part where we always get triggered, right? CX doesn't work. It does work, you're just not measuring it, and you just don't know how well this is working. This is a big part, and CX is so complex and so intertwined with all of the teams. So having that clarity, these journey steps, bringing it back to the teams, doing that accountability, that's possible. So yeah, I hope it will sound to the people watching us today, and just say, let's give it a try.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Matthieu and Jan, for giving our participants such an exclusive insight on the voice of process and its impact on the organization, the business performance, the customer experience. So yeah, a very big thank you. I would say we can now open the questions to the audience. I saw an initial question at the very beginning from Viada, which is, what is the software used for the voice of customer visualization? Matt, I guess you can answer that.
Yeah, so today this is Looker Studio, because again, we are on the MVP phase. So we use a business intelligence tool to support us so we can really pinpoint what works and how it works. Tomorrow, we'll need to get out of it and we'll need to have our own solution, obviously, but as of today, this is what you see.
Wonderful, thank you, Matt. And also we had by email a couple of questions that I might ask actually to Ian. How does this impact the company's culture and mindset?
It's a very good question, because there is a connection with mindset, because one of the reasons that this is a difficult thing to put in place is that and you may have seen this on one of my slides in my presentation, is that it requires an element of accountability, transparency, and openness. Now, I did mention in my pre-rambling that there is a big challenge when it comes to accountability at the moment, with many things in organizations, that there is a significant lack of accountability when it comes to customer experience and, sadly, process management. And as a result, in many organizations, we don't really know who's accountable for certain things, especially things that face the customer. And so if you're going to be able to change that mindset, you have got to go into this knowing that actually measuring organizational processes is not something that those who should be accountable for process will like you for. That they're not going to welcome you with open arms saying, oh, you're going to measure everything that my teams are doing. That's really good. That they're going to want to resist you and put a wall up in front of you, because their immediate, and I'm making a big generalization, the immediate concern is that this is going to make me look bad. You're trying to make me look bad. That's not why we're doing this. And an important thing for anyone to consider in going into this is that most process owners, whether they acknowledge they're a process owner or not, has a wish list of things that they wish they could have that would improve the performance of their process. Some of those things they will have asked for, some of those things they won't have asked for. But whenever they're challenged by their boss as to why is that happening, that, you know, what's going through their mind? Well, if you just gave me the extra people, if you just gave me that system, if you just, what we need to do with voice of the process is allow a process owner to understand that actually what voice of the process can do is help you make the argument to make your wish come true. Because too often they've got a wish for something, but they can't really articulate why they need it. Voice of the process will give them the why. So they can go to their boss and say, do you know what, if you want me to improve that process by X percentage points, this is what I'm going to need to be able to do it. And so where I've been able to successfully engage leaders in changing the mindset is where I've been able to allow them to understand that this is not about making them look bad. This is helping them to look good. This is helping them to have the facts to make better decisions and to get the things they need to ultimately improve. So there is a diplomacy role, essentially, that goes alongside this. So very, as Matthieu knows, I always have a long-winded answer to the question, Louisa, but a long-winded answer to the question, but I hope that responds to the question that person asked.
Yeah, it does indeed. Thank you very much, Ian.
And I'm going to add to that, Jan, because I think you could not have nailed it better. This is exactly what has happened on our first meetings. There was some people being reluctant about, hey, now I'm going to be on the spotlight, and they're going to see that we're not doing good. So at the beginning, it was a bit difficult, but months over months, actually, when we gave the right to speak to those people, and they actually told the board, I just need more resources. We need more resources for our website. And they actually got the results that they have been fighting for an entire year. I mean, they were stunned. Oh, well, I just actually had to ask. Well, it's a little bit more. You had to ask and to show why it makes sense. And now we could actually measure it. So we could actually support it. So this is going to happen all the time, I believe. And that's why we'll come with examples of past companies and see how it's going to take some time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you both. There's a question from Peter. We saw a demo for a pure player. Does the tool also work for omnichannel business?
Yes. So today, the limitations of omnichannel business is how much data you're bringing back to your dashboard. This is getting better on the omnichannel business because there are many more ways now to look into those data points. So it is possible. A business like this, a tool like this, is always going to be better with a digital business just because of the sheer number of KPIs you have available. But that was Peter, right? Who asked the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Peter, now, if you do look at your retail stores and you do look at foot traffic, and you do give also the opportunity to have, to give feedback, to receive feedback right from the point of sale, through QR codes, through the receipts, through follow-up email, getting that information from the consumer, then getting the purchasing behavior, online, offline, omnichannel, you get that. We're actually doing that right now. With one of these e-commerce brands, and not fully e-commerce, they're retail as well. And we're now gathering this data to put it in. It's more complicated, but it works. And it's all into the capabilities that you will have.
Thank you, Matthieu. Zainab posed a question, which is, splitting process into subject out of a very big voice of customer is one of the hardest part in big organizations. What do you advise for this?
So I've been reading that question, Zainab, while Matthieu was answering or responding to the last one. This is one of the reasons why I very much urge you to focus on those simple steps. I say simple, the very simply described steps that I shared in my contextualization. You have got to start this with the customer journey. And one of the things that I am very strict when I share knowledge around journey mapping with organizations around the world is that, firstly, too many organizations are massively overcomplicating the way they visualize the journey. But in addition, it's not uncommon for the journey that's being mapped to not represent the end-to-end journey, the end-to-end relationship. Too many organizations visualize a transaction as the customer journey. The methodology that I advocate is creating a very simple visualization of the journey that I call the level 0 view of the journey, that identifies the end-to-end journey as stages of the journey. no more than 7 stages. The reason that I'm sharing this is that if you can visualize your journey at that level, then when you're thinking about designing your VOC and VOP mechanism, it's all about representing those stages, not necessarily every single touch point within them, okay, but you need to have a measurable understanding of each stage of the journey. Now, this is something that I haven't got enough time to share more information with you, but you may want to reach out to Matthieu or to myself, and we can either, arrange some time to talk to you offline to explain it, or, and I'm not a salesperson, you might want to attend one of my masterclasses, just so you can see that simple methodology, because massively overcomplicating the journey, and as a result, overcomplicating the way you're measuring what you do, is likely to lead to a lack of action. And that's obviously what we do not want to see. So the long-winded answer to that question, align your measurement to the simple visualization of the journey, the stages of the journey.
Yeah, and you saw the 5 steps in my voice of customer map, right? There's no need to have more. You could always go level 1, as Jan said, level 2, you can go so deep, but the answer, the results, everything you need to see is already in that level 2.
Thank you both. Michael is asking, who in the organization will own the voice of process dashboard?
Now that's a very good question, Michael.
Yeah.
And in the spirit of being a consultant, I will always say it depends, because every organization is different. However, I'm going to give you my opinion, because it's important I stress it's my opinion. Whenever I have worked with organizations to build a VOP mechanism in the past, I have always looked for those who have access to data. Either a business intelligence team, a business analysis team, sometimes it's finance, because those are the people who have the power, because they have the information. And whoever has that information, who has access to the source of the information, in my opinion, they should own the dashboard, okay? For me, the ownership of a VOP mechanism should be independent of those who are accountable for the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it should not be the process owner that owns the dashboard. They are accountable for the metric, but I think the dashboard itself should be constructed independently. So essentially, you need to be absolutely certain that the data on that dashboard is robust, has credibility, and can be relied upon. It is for the accountable process owner to add the commentary. They don't. It's not for the dashboard creator to comment. It's for them to bring that data together so we know the source of it. One of the things that Matthieu didn't go into any detail on intentionally is that when you're constructing a VOP mechanism, it's really important to have an operational definition for each process metric. Yes. Because you need to be absolutely clear as to where is that data coming from. And this is why it should be those who access it that own it. That's my view. I don't know if you agree with me, Matthieu.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely on that part for the ownership, and then adding this cross-functional project management, business development, whatever you want to call it, team to, really like on the actionable parts and make sure, they are the ones going to the board because they have the connection with everyone, while the data teams too often are a bit excluded and a bit siloed in there. But this one person would be the spider in the web and can just like bring everything to life and work with everyone would be really, really good as a complement. But yeah, absolutely agree with the data team. Yeah. There is a very long message from Vanessa.
I've been reading it.
Yeah, I would want to say, Vanessa, maybe we can answer to you. I don't know if there's a question at the end. to answer to you separately.
Let me give a quick answer now.
Yeah, you ready?
If that's okay. Just a quick
Absolutely.
answer to Vanessa now. You are highlighting a potential challenge with NPS as the key VOC mechanism, Vanessa. NPS, as you know, is actually a very volatile mechanism. Very volatile because the nature of the way a customer answers NPS related questions is dependent on lots of factors, not just their interactions with an organization. Additionally, NPS is a statement of intent rather than something that they actually go on and do. And so what you may not see is a relationship between NPS drivers and process capability. If that is the case, you would not be able to use NPS as a predictor. It doesn't work. And what that would mean is that you would need additional VOC metrics to be able to understand the relationship. Again, though, it all depends on your situation because depending on the nature of your business and what how your customers are answering the question will also influence it. But Matthieu is right. It probably requires a little bit more in-depth conversation. So I would definitely take the opportunity to reach out to me and Matthieu, and then we can always arrange some time offline to go through it. But I think it's likely you're measuring CSAT as well as NPS. I'm making an assumption. If you are, even if you don't report CSAT, it may well be your CSAT mechanism that is the way of understanding the relationship, not NPS. That would be my quick response to that question.
I need to show you how NPS works. Yeah.
So reach out to us, Vanessa, and we'll go through it in more detail.
Yeah, I will be sharing the emails just in a few minutes, so you will be able to connect with both of you, Matthieu and Ian. I have just one question that I received by email, just connecting to the first one, which is, we talked about the company's mindset and culture, how it's going to impact, but what about the strategy in 2023?
I think the most important response to that comes back to this connection to voice of the business. Ultimately, we're living in a world now. In fact, we've lived in a world since 2008 of austerity. Okay? Whether people like it or not, we have been. We're now moving into a period where that's going to get even worse, driven by COVID, by Ukraine, and by lots of other factors. What that means is that organizations are in a more financially precarious position now than they've ever been. And what that means is that there is a risk that organizations will make decisions to become more financially viable that will actually have a negative impact on the customer experience because they will panic and just slash wherever they can. For me, this is why increasing your focus on something like voice of the process is such an opportunity now, because what voice of the process will enable you to demonstrate is not just how can you make money, because this is the misconception of leaders, is that customer experience will increase revenue. Well, it will do in the long term. What we need to show in the short term are real financial results that actually enable us to demonstrate that we can deliver the experience more efficiently and more effectively by eliminating things that are going wrong in the customer journey and saving money as a result, which by doing that gives us happier customers. Voice of the process is a way of doing that. So for me, if you're able to adapt, if you have one, your customer experience strategy to demonstrate how you're going to create that greater connection to the business strategy, then I think you'll be in a good position.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have proven that 2 years ago with the pandemic. A lot of CX projects got cancelled because there was this panic mode and we have to save some money. And now 2 years later, we see those companies struggling. Yes, they cut some costs in 2021, but now in 2022, restarting that cruise ship that you have basically stopped takes a lot of effort, and there were other ways to cut things, and again it comes back to this measurement and knowledge, knowing also what to cut and what not to cut, because CX is the long-term driver, it's your sustainability driver, right? So yeah.
Wonderful. I think that was the last question, so conscious of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to close this webinar with a huge thank you to Matthieu Bonelli, Ian Golding, for having given your time today. And I hope everybody enjoyed this webinar and found it very interesting. Of course, if you have any questions about anything that's been shared today, please do not hesitate to get in touch with Matthieu or Ian. I'm going to share just now their emails, so you can save them and get in touch with them directly. Once again, thank you very much, Matt and Ian, for joining us today, and thank you all for listening. And I wish you a lovely end of the day.
Thank you so much, Louisa.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, guys.